people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Mikaela Mayer says that she's open to a Claressa Shields fight at 154 pounds, but won't wait forever. Female stars Mikaela Mayer and Claressa Shields both crave the big fights, the name fights, and now, as she said when speaking with Sky Sports, Mayer, the current WBO welterweight champion, believes a fight between herself and Claressa, the reigning unified women's heavyweight champion, can happen. But how? With the weight disparity, Mayer, who is actually teammates with Shields when they were both boxing in the 2016 Olympics, said that if Shields can get down to 154, then the fight could be made. Mayer says, I want the bigger fights, calls on Shields to come down. I'm not super big, now that I've settled into welterweight, but I could go to 154 for the right fights, Mayer said. Claressa Shields returning to the junior middleweight division, where she briefly reigned as an undisputed champion, has been a postulation for years now, that if she wanted to, she could get back down there, but as it stands, she's only moved up. 160, 168, 175 to the heavyweight divisions, where her next fight is. If you look at the size of her based on recent images, it doesn't seem to me that she'll be returning to the junior middleweight division in the near future, that even if she wanted to and were charting a course back down, it would take her some time to get back down there, and maybe some fights in the interim. Could take a while, but Mikaela Mayer is entertaining the idea of a fight between them. I'm not super big, now that I've settled into welterweight, but I could go to 154 for the right fights, Mayer said. I don't want the easy path to just have more accolades. That's not really what I've been about. I want the bigger fights with the names, fights that people are interested in seeing. If Claressa gets down to 154, I think that's something that we've both discussed making happen. Mayer, though, added how she's not going to hold her breath, waiting on Shields, and that if the self-proclaimed GWOAT opts to stay at heavyweight, then that's fine. But Mayer did also say that the longer Shields fights as a heavyweight, the harder it will be for her to drop back down if she ever does feel like doing so. I figured after the Danielle Perkins fight that Claressa would try to get back down to 175, maybe 168, where there's a bit more to choose from. The heavyweight division is a barren division, but that's where her next fight is. She is fighting New Zealand's own Lonnie Daniels, a fighter that most of the American public is largely ignorant to. If you want to fight the big names, the somebodies, you gotta move down. Enter Mikaela Mayer. From a fan perspective, some might like to see Shields versus Mayer fight. This is instead of seeing Shields win in pretty easy fashion, as she faces far less talented fighters at heavyweight, where the talent pool as far as female fighters is quite shallow. Though at the same time, how much credit are you supposed to give Claressa Shields if she were to fight Mikaela and beat Mikaela when Mikaela has fought as low as 130 pounds and Claressa has fought as high as heavyweight? It's a nuanced situation specific to the women's boxing scene because you'd never see this kind of a matchup with the men. A welterweight calling out a heavyweight to meet in the middle at junior middle? I mean, that's like Jaron Ennis calling out Alexander Usyk, or Brian Norman calling out Daniel Dubois. So here's what I think. I don't think a Mayer versus Shields fight happens anytime in the near future. I don't think a Mayer versus Shields fight might ever see the light of day. There's simply too much weight in between them. Perhaps Mikaela might one day move up to the junior middleweight division, and I anticipate that she could do very well there. But that's a move that might be far off from now, because where she is, she has options. She has the undisputed title fight with Lauren Price to pursue, Perhaps a Natasha Jonas rematch, since Natasha's not retired, not yet. Mikaela could always exact her revenge on Natasha. She could pursue that. She could pursue a Chantel Cameron fight. Chantel, who's not that far away from Mikaela. She's down there at 140, where Mikaela's at 147. There are better and bigger options for Mikaela. More realistic fights than a Clarissa Shields fight, and she might have one or some of them long before she moves up to 154. In men's welterweight news, Mario Barrios will do whatever it takes to retain his title against Manny Pacquiao. Mario Barrios held a media workout in Vegas on Saturday as he prepares to challenge living legend Manny Pacquiao. Challenge Manny Pacquiao? Challenge him for what? Barrios is the champion. Barrios will defend his WBC welterweight title against the formerly retired 46-year-old Pacquiao atop a PBC card on Prime Video pay-per-view on Saturday, July 19th, from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Vegas, in a fight that I think is a lot more farcical than this past weekend's fight involving Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez, because unlike Jake Paul, Mario Barrios is a bona fide boxer, what's supposed to be an esteemed professional, and thus, he should be held to a higher standard than a Jake Paul. Except he isn't. Barrios, 29-2 with 1 draw and 18 knockouts, has established himself as a brave but vulnerable champion. He is 3-2-1 in his last 6 fights, including a stoppage loss to Gervonta Davis at 140 pounds and a wide unanimous decision defeat to Keith Thurman at welter. Barrios picked up the interim WBC title by outpointing and nearly stopping former champion Yordenis Ugas 2 years ago in 2023, who himself beat an already past prime Pacquiao in 2021. Barrios was elevated to full champion in June of last year. Barrios, along with his trainer, Bob Santos, spoke to the media from Pound for Pound Gym in Vegas. They've been waiting on this fight for a long while. Even though the fight just got made, Pacquiao versus Barrios as a conversation has been around for a little over a year, maybe 2. What may have accelerated that process is that now Mario is a full-fledged world champion who brings to the table a belt for Manny to fight for. It's all smiles between us now, but when that bell rings, we're gonna be in there with bad intentions. Pacquiao is trying to take my title, and I have to do whatever it takes to make sure he doesn't, Barrios said. This has been a tremendous camp. It's very rare to have a camp this smooth. The sparring has been perfect, and I'm very happy with how everything has gone. The hard work has already been put in. During training camp, I haven't been really working with the mentality that I'm facing a legend. At the end of the day, he's just another man who's trying to fight for my title. I respect what he's done in the sport and the person he is, but come fight night, that respect won't be there. When the fight was first brought to me, I wasn't sure whether to take it as respect or disrespect because he wanted me. But regardless, I'm the champion for a reason, and I'm gonna show why I'm holding the WBC title. He's gotta tell himself that, but he hit the nail on the head the first time. It's disrespect. Manny didn't go after Brian Norman, he didn't go after Boots Ennis, he went after Mario, and it's not because of how good Mario is, it's because of how good Mario isn't. He knows what he's doing. Manny's movement and hand speed is looking on point right now, said Mario. That's what has always made him a great fighter. He doesn't have an easy style to replicate, and that can make sparring tricky. That's one of the reasons he's been so successful and why he's in the position that he is. This camp has been fantastic, Bob Santos said, who trains Mario. Everyone's been doing a great job with their piece. In the end, Mario has to put in the work, and he will be victorious on July 19th. Take it to the bank. You don't become a world champion in 2 weight classes by accident. Not too many people have done that, and Mario deserves his credit. Mario is a 2-weight world champion? No, he isn't. At 140 pounds, he held the WBA regular title at the time that Josh Taylor was undisputed champion. But for a long while now, the powers that be, and some fighters, have been trying to pass off these secondary trinkets, these secondary titles, as full titles, so that guys like Mario don't have to challenge the Josh Taylors of the world, the true champions, but still gets to call himself a world champion for holding a baby title, a Happy Meal belt. And of course his own trainer is going to qualify that trinket title as a full title to talk him up and keep him confident, keep him happy, but in reality, Mario is not a 2-weight world champion. I think it's an insult to all the actual 2-weight world champions, 2 and 3 and 4-weight world champions who had to get it the hard way, while Mario pretends he's cut from the same cloth as them. You know who else is a 2-weight world champion? Alexander Usyk. Is Mario the same kind of fighter that he is? Shakur Stevenson is a 3-weight world champion. Is Mario the same kind of fighter that he is? Terence Crawford, Naoya Inoue, Canelo Alvarez, those are 4-weight world champions. Is Mario Barrios the same kind of fighter that they are? It would seem that some people are trying to gaslight you into thinking that he might be when you call him a 2-weight world champion. His trainer Bob Santos isn't convinced that Pacquiao's 4-year layoff will hurt the Hall of Famer. Manny Pacquiao is an icon. There's nobody more worthy of this opportunity. Oh, there actually is. It's Sulaiman Sissoko, who, unlike Manny Pacquiao, didn't spend the last 4 years in retirement. He spent the last 4 years fighting in WBC eliminators so that he could then get passed over by Manny Pacquiao. Bob continued, look at what he's given to the sport, him being Manny Pacquiao. Also, inactivity can work in different ways. With an older guy, that time off can be something that helps him. It's going to be a great fight for everyone to watch, but El Azteca will come out with the win. Why is Bob talking up Manny Pacquiao? Because he wants you to act like his fight is fighting a prime Pacquiao. He wants you to act like he's fighting a Pacquiao that still has something left to give. If he's talking up Manny Pacquiao, it's because not only does he expect his fighter to win, but he wants the crowd to give him credit for beating a 46-year-old fighter that hasn't fought in 4 years and is coming off a loss. Now, for the part the boxing media doesn't want to say, and all these people that are clutching at their pearls, that Jake Paul fought Julio Cesar Chavez, when this is actually worse. Chavez is younger than Manny Pacquiao, and unlike Manny Pacquiao, Chavez, before he fought Jake Paul, had a fight within the last calendar year, whereas Manny hasn't fought in 4. All the pearl clutching you see in association with Jake Paul versus Chavez, where is that pearl clutching now? Where's the pearl clutching when it comes to this fight? Because this is actually worse. A fighter with only 13 professional fights fighting a washed-up former champion is pretty run-of-the-mill, tel damage for a developing fighter. But somebody like Mario, who actually had options. Remember, he was first elevated to full WBC champion in June of last year, so you could have unified with Boots if you wanted to, with Brian Norman. Could have unified titles with his PBC stablemate, Montestanionis. It looks a lot like you chose to wait for a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. For no other reason than you're afraid you can't hack it with fighters your own age, at the same stage in their careers as you are in yours, so you chose to wait for a retiree. Pathetic. And they want to tell guys like you and me that Jake Paul is what's wrong with boxing. No, this is what's wrong with boxing. The hypocrisy. The double standards. Now, some might be angry that the sanctioning bodies are whoring themselves to a Jake Paul, but they're also whoring themselves to this fight. What qualifies Manny Pacquiao to be fast-tracked to an immediate title shot when he's coming off a loss 4 years out from his last fight? How is that right? Stop talking to me about the fighter that he used to be, because he's clearly not the guy that pounced on Miguel Cotto or Antonio Margarito. He hasn't been that guy for a very long time. So that you can stand on your soapbox belly aching about what a social media influencer is doing, look at what Mario is doing. That's worse. Boxing, in a very general sense, doesn't take itself seriously enough that anybody should be hung up on a Jake Paul, what he's doing, who he's fighting, where he's ranked, when this is the kind of crap you get all without a Jake Paul. Jake Paul is not what's wrong with boxing. Now, maybe he's a byproduct of what's wrong with boxing. Maybe he's a symptom, but he's not the root cause. He's not the ailment. He's not the problem. Shit like this is the problem. Elsewhere in the welterweight division, Brian Norman pays future foe Devin Haney high compliments. He's never ducked a fight. Yeah, that much is true. Turkey LL Sheik announced through his X account Sunday that Brian Norman and Devin Haney had reached an agreement to fight for sometime in November in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The date of their 12-round welterweight championship clash has yet to be determined. Even if he's gun-shy or whatever, you could never fault his heart, Norman told The Ring. Why does he need to fight me? I just came off the biggest knockout of my career, possibly the knockout of the year. My momentum is going high. Why does he need to fight me? So, no matter what, I know he's got heart. I know he's got dog in him. And maybe he does, Brian.
but not power.
Why does he need to fight Bryan? Bryan asks. Well, who else was Devin gonna fight? To get at the kind of money that he wants to make, he can't fight Ryan, that fell through. So did the Lopez fight.
Don't give him a participation award for doing what he's expected to do, for doing his job.
Because it's not altruism and it's not selflessness. I don't even know that it's bravery so much as an act of desperation. But Bryan continued. Even in the Ryan Garcia fight, he was still stepping to Ryan Garcia. He wasn't boxing, he was going at him. So we can never fault his heart. We can never fault his determination. So that's why I gotta work 1,000,000 times harder. Norman, 28-0 with 22 KOs and 1 no contest, wasn't the least bit surprised Haney chose to fight him. Despite his spectacular knockout of Jin Sasaki, Haney can become a world champion in a third division if he beats Norman in the Oakland, California native's first fight at the welterweight limit of 147 pounds.
If he were to pull this off, Devin Haney would find his way back onto the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. If he wins.
People try and call Haney a duck, Norman said, but real deal, sit there and think about it. What fight has he not accepted? Like even the Gervonta Davis stuff. Talks only start happening when one of them have a fight coming up and already signed a deal. So those fights can't happen with Shakur Stevenson. Of course, Stevenson said it was a lowball offer, but they still sent something out there. We've never heard of him actually ducking a fight. So people can push that narrative to the side. But I don't see people calling Devin a duck, per se. That's not what I see them saying. I see them saying that he fights like a chicken with his head cut off. I see them saying that he's boring and doesn't belong on television.
I saw Bob Arum call him a track star.
Not a ducker. And you tell yourself that, well, that Jose Ramirez fight, that's really the only time he's ever fought like that, but how many more times is he supposed to?
What am I, Amnesty International?
I'm supposed to give this guy 2, 3, 4 more chances to bore me to death? It was a piss-poor performance that people had to pay to see, so the people that paid have the right to complain.
But I don't see anybody calling Devin a ducker, and that wasn't the indictment levied against him when he lost to Ryan Garcia or when he stunk out the joint in Times Square.
Bryan can lavish praise on Devin Haney for accepting the fight and what he's done so far, but to me, he's making this about something that it's not, something that it isn't. Nobody's calling Devin a ducker. They're saying that he's boring.
And it's very hard to imagine how Devin will approach this fight with Bryan when he had to be so careful with a shot-to-shit Jose Ramirez, a slow-footed plotter with not much hand speed.
Trying to reconcile it, how could you be so careful with Jose, then go right into a fight like this? The only way I can reconcile it is that desperate times call for desperate measures. Devin has already had not 1, but 2 fights fall through.
He's got some legal issues coming up with the mother of his child. He's gonna need money to deal with that.
Desperate times call for desperate measures, and don't pretend that dropping back down in weight is an option. It's not. He can't make 140 anymore, so he's sort of up Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. Bryan wonders, why did Devin accept this fight? What were his other options? Did he have a choice?
I don't think he did. But one way or another, these 2 guys are gonna fight, and that's all right.